Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a seriously fascinating one for you today. But before we jump into the mechanics of it all, I want to start with a quote right out of the source material that just, well, it really struck me.
Oh, yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it goes, love is not the flash of moonlight, but the hand that stays through the storm. Healing is not erasing the past, but refusing to let it write the ending.
It's just a beautiful way to set the tone for this because, this whole deep dive is about stripping away that fantasy of a magical arrival. It's about the really gritty, enduring practice of just being present.
Exactly, the practice of noticing. So think about your brain for a second. Just picture it. You probably imagine it as this like sealed computer processor.
Right, it's a sterile little machine.
Right. A hyper-efficient spreadsheet sitting in the dark vault of your skull, crunching abstract numbers, totally walled off from the chaotic outside world. But what if that's completely wrong?
And this research argues it is completely wrong.
Yeah, what if your mind isn't a closed box at all, but is actually like leaking out into the physical room you're sitting in right now?
It's a radical shift in perspective, honestly.
Hmm.
But it is exactly where we need to start. Because for centuries, we've basically worshipped the Cartesian model of the mind.
Right, the whole Descartes thing. I think, therefore I am.
Exactly, which put the pure, isolated intellect on a pedestal. And it basically treated the physical body and the environment as just background noise.
Just a vehicle to carry the brain around.
Pretty much. But the framework we are exploring today, which spans cognitive science, AI, architecture, and even a local kitchen incubator, it tears that wall all the way down.
It really does. It flips the script entirely.
Right. To understand it, we have to completely reverse how we think about thinking. The traditional academic model is very top-down, very cold.
Right.
It tells us that cognition goes, first you have an idea, then an analysis, then a concept, and finally execution.
Very.
But this source material argues for a sensory-first model. It goes sensation, then atmosphere, then meaning, and only at the very end, language.
Words are literally the last thing to arrive at the party.
Exactly. Language is just catching up to what the body already knows.
Okay, let's unpack this because it totally upends how we experience reality. And, this brings us to a major movement in cognitive science that underpins all this research, which is called 4E cognition.
Right. 4E cognition is this idea that the mind is embodied, embedded, inactive, and extended.
That's a lot of E's.
It is. But simply put, it means we don't just think about reality. We think through it.
Okay, I want to break those down because they are pretty dense. So embodied makes sense, right? We have flesh and blood, our hormones, our physical states. If I'm hungry, I'm cranky. That affects my mood.
Sure, absolutely.
And embedded means we exist in a specific physical and cultural environment. I get that. But explain inactive. Like, what does it mean to have an inactive mind?
Well, inactive means we don't just passively sit back and receive information, like a camera recording a movie.
Okay.
Our physical actions actually bring our reality into existence. Think about a blind person using a cane.
Oh, right.
The cane isn't just, sending raw data to the brain. The physical act of tapping, that sweeping motion, is what creates the perception of the sidewalk. The action is the perception.
That is wild. The action is the perception. And I mean, that connects perfectly to how this framework looks at architecture. There's this heavy focus on architectural phenomenology in the sources.
Oh, yeah. The work of Juhani Plasma and Peter Zumthor.
Right. And the whole premise there is that a space is not just a mathematical layout of concrete and glass. Like when you walk into a room, you don't instantly calculate its geometric dimensions in feet and inches.
No, of course not. You feel its atmosphere in a fraction of a second. You notice the temperature, the quality of the light, the acoustic harmony.
You sense it biologically before your rational brain even catches up.
Precisely. Gaston Bachelard, the philosopher, he called a building a nest for dreaming. It's an experiential container that actively shapes your psychology.
I was thinking about this. Like, think about the last time you walked into a DMV.
Oh, terrible.
Right. Versus a cozy local coffee shop. The DMV has those harsh fluorescent lights, hard plastic chairs, echoing acoustic ceilings.
And you feel it immediately.
Yeah, your shoulders literally physically tense up, your stress hormones spike, you feel defensive before your conscious brain even processes where you are.
You're sensing the atmosphere biologically.
Exactly. And the coffee shop with its warm lighting and soft textures does the exact opposite.
Because the atmosphere is the functionality. And to really illustrate this kind of pure embodied presence, the source material brings up this wonderful example of a dog named Oliver.
Yes. Oliver the dog.
Right, so Oliver doesn't have an abstract linguistic concept of a forest.
Yeah.
He doesn't walk outside and think, ah, yes, here are some deciduous trees.
No, he just lives in a state of pure sensation.
Exactly. He navigates entirely by scent, the direction of the wind, the texture of the dirt under his paws.
The sudden temperature shifts when he walks into the shadows.
Yes. He is a masterclass in noticing what is actually there rather than what his brain thinks should be there. He exists totally before translation.
But wait, I want to push back on this a little, specifically on the idea of the mind being entirely extended, which was that fourth E.
Okay, go for it.
If my mind is truly leaking out into the environment, like, where does free will come in? Are you saying my thoughts are just at the mercy of how messy my desk is? Are my notebooks literally acting as external hard drives for my consciousness?
I mean, it sounds like science fiction, right?
Yeah.
But from a cognitive perspective, yes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, this is philosopher Andy Clark's extended mind hypothesis. Look at it biologically. Our brains are incredibly expensive to run. They burn a massive amount of calories.
Those are basically energy hogs.
Huge energy hogs. So through evolution, we learn to offload complex cognitive tasks onto our physical surroundings to save energy. And this is where David Kirsch's concept of epistemic actions comes in.
Okay, what is an epistemic action? Break that down for me.
Well, think about a pragmatic action. That's moving something to achieve a physical goal like turning a key to unlock a door.
Right. Standard physical action.
But an epistemic action is a physical movement you make purely to simplify a mental computation inside your head. The classic example in the literature is playing Scrabble.
Oh, like when you physically rearrange the wooden tiles on a little rack.
Exactly. You aren't moving those tiles to score points directly. You aren't achieving a physical goal just by shuffling them. You are moving them to help your brain literally see new word combinations.
Oh, wow.
You're using the physical world to co-process your thoughts, because it's so much easier than trying to hold 7 floating letters in your working memory and rearrange them purely in your mind.
That is fascinating. I am literally thinking with my hands. My hands and the wooden tiles are an active part of my cognitive process in that moment.
Precisely. You are extended. And if we accept that human intelligence relies this heavily on physically feeling and manipulating the environment,
Which it clearly does.
right, then it suddenly makes perfect sense why this framework argues that the tech industry's current approach to artificial intelligence is fundamentally flawed.
Oh, massively flawed. Because we are trying to build disembodied brains in vats. The framework brings up something called the vector grounding problem, which is what traps modern large language models, LLMs.
Yeah, the LLMs operate in a domain-closed loop. They are just a massive statistical map of words.
Right.
It knows mathematically that the word apple is closely clustered near the words red and crisp in its vector space.
But it has never actually bitten into an apple?
Exactly. It's never felt the juice. It's never heard the crunch. It simulates text brilliantly, sure, but it has zero physical coupling to the real world.
And crucially, and this blew my mind, it has no vulnerability. It can't die.
That is the anchor of true intelligence. Antonio Damasio, the neuroscientist, he argues that true minds are rooted in homeostasis.
Homeostasis, meaning the biological requirement to regulate your internal body state just to stay alive.
Right. Because you can die from being too cold or from starving, you have to care about your internal state. This biological need creates homeostatic feelings like shivering or hunger pangs.
Right.
But a machine, it doesn't care if you unplug it from the wall, so it generates no subjective feeling of its own existence.
And this leads to an incredible medical case from Damasio's research that we have to talk about, the Elliot case.
Such a crucial case.
Right. So Elliot was this successful, really intelligent man who unfortunately developed a brain tumor. To save his life, surgeons removed the tumor, but in the process, they destroyed the emotional processing centers of his frontal lobe.
And the tragedy of the Elliot case, and what makes it so important to cognitive science, is that his analytical, logical intelligence remained absolutely perfect after the surgery.
His IQ didn't drop a single point.
Not one point. He could map out every logical outcome of a complex business decision flawlessly.
But wait, we usually think of emotions as the things that cloud our logical judgment, right? Like, the ultimate fantasy in tech right now is to build a purely logical machine that makes perfect, unbiased choices without messy human feelings getting in the way.
What's fascinating here is that the Elliot case proves why that fantasy is a total dead end. Elliot became functionally paralyzed over the simplest decisions in his daily life.
Because he couldn't choose.
Exactly. He would spend hours literally hours trying to decide what time to schedule a lunch or what color pen to use to sign a document.
Wow.
He could list all the pros and cons of the blue pen versus the black pen, the ink flow, the professional appearance,
Yeah.
but he couldn't actually pick one.
Because he lost what the research calls emotional valence.
Yes, emotional valence is that subjective biological signal that makes one option feel more attractive or meaningful or urgent than another.
It's that subtle gut feeling that just says, I prefer the blue pen, let's just move on.
Right? Without that emotional weighting, all logical options look completely equally valid. And when everything is equally logical, choice collapses entirely.
So we've been trying to build these pure logic machines, completely ignoring the fact that pure logic is actually paralyzing. Without emotion, there is literally no motivation to choose anything.
Which is exactly why the manifesto in these documents calls for SAI, social emotional artificial intelligence.
Okay, SEA high.
Right. It's the proposition that if we want AI to actually understand human meaning and make beneficial decisions, it cannot just be a text predictor. It has to have simulated homeostatic needs.
It needs a simulated stake in its environment so that it can actually care about outcomes.
To use a brilliant phrase from the research, a calculator solves, but a friend participates.
Man, I love that.
If an AI doesn't have skin in the game, it's just a hyper-fast calculator. It can't participate in meaning.
Okay, so if humans aren't just logical machines, and we evolve through our physical and emotional environments, how do we track that evolution over a whole lifetime? Because we don't just survive, right? We grow.
And that brings us to what this framework calls the becoming atlas.
Right, because normally we organize our knowledge really statically. We create these neat little folders on our laptops labeled work, hobbies, finances.
Very siloed. But the Becoming Atlas proposes a longitudinal map of a mind's evolution. It's a graph of how ideas cross-pollinate over time. And the core physics of this evolution is translation.
Translation, like moving an idea from one space to another.
Exactly. It's the ability to take a sensation from one domain and apply it to another. For example, translating the sensory awareness you learn from walking your dog into a design principle for building better AI.
Or translating the feeling of peace you get in a well-designed room into a daily routine for emotional regulation.
Precisely. And to perform these translations, we use what philosopher Alvanoe calls strange tools.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. I love this concept. Because a normal tool, like a hammer or a screwdriver, it just helps us execute a basic survival or mechanical task. You don't really think about the hammer while you're using it. You just look at the nail.
Right, it's invisible in a way. But art, philosophy, music, architecture, these are strange tools.
Because they don't have immediate survival value.
Exactly. Instead, they disrupt our automatic habits. They force us to pause, and they bring our hidden modes of cognition out into the open so we can actually inspect them and play with them.
And the research dives deep into two specific, strange tools that most people just dismiss as hobbies, right? Photography and playing the saxophone.
Oh, yes.
They aren't treated as leisure activities here. They are presented as advanced cognitive technologies for training human attention.
Let's look at photography first. The source is treated as an epistemic laboratory. It's actually a multi-step cognitive operation.
Okay, walk me through the steps.
Well, first is noticing, actually seeing the way light hits a building, which requires immense presence. Second is stopping, literally arresting your physical momentum in the world. Third is framing.
And framing is basically synthesizing the chaos of the world, right? You're deciding what matters inside the rectangle and cutting out what doesn't.
That's exactly right. And then the final step is preservation. You are translating a fleeting, intangible atmosphere into a permanent physical memory. It constantly trains your brain to scan reality for meaning.
That's incredible. And then there's the saxophone. Playing jazz isn't just, making nice sounds.
No, not at all.
When you play the saxophone, you aren't just reading notes off a page. You are actively listening to the bassist, adjusting your tempo to the drummer, and changing your melody in a split second.
You are translating breath and timing into a real-time simulation of complex systems.
You're practicing how to hold your own identity, your own tone, while adapting to a highly unpredictable, chaotic environment.
And this connects perfectly to Lambros Malaforz's concept of strange. That's an acronym.
Okay, let's break that acronym down. It stands for Situated Transactional Genesis, right?
Yes. So situated means you are grounded in a specific physical environment. Transactional means there's a constant back and forth exchange of energy between you and the tool.
Like how the saxophone pushes back against your breath.
Exactly. And genesis means creation. The argument is that human identity and self-becoming are never locked inside the skull. You literally build your mind out into the world. You become who you are by physically coupling with the camera, the saxophone, the environment.
So we've gone from the leaky brain to 4E cognition to why AI needs vulnerability to using strange tools like jazz to train our attention. So what does this all mean?
How does it apply?
Yeah, how does this high-level, almost abstract philosophy actually apply to the real world? Because the deep dive anchors all of this in a very gritty, practical, civic project.
This is where the framework proves its real-world utility, I think. It takes us to a town called Hart, and it details the transformation of an underutilized, struggling local kitchen incubator called the Starting Block.
Right. The goal of this project is to turn this struggling facility into what they call a human potential engine named the Becoming Lab. And the mechanism here is just brilliant.
They aren't just buying better ovens.
No. They are fusing the existing culinary infrastructure with creative and digital support. Specifically, they partnered with a group called Simple Mind Studios to create a multidisciplinary entrepreneurial hub.
Think about what that means for a local citizen. Let's say a local baker comes in just wanting to bake bread to sell at the farmer's market.
Sure.
In a normal kitchen, that's where it ends. They bake, they leave. But in the Becoming Lab, they bake the bread, and then they walk down the hall to the photography studio to learn how to shoot product photos. They learn digital literacy, brand design, storytelling.
They are using the strange tools we just talked about. The photography studio becomes a tool for them to reframe not just their bread, but their entire identity, from someone who bakes to an entrepreneur building a brand.
Exactly. But to make this happen on a municipal level, you run into what the research calls the translation challenge.
Oh, this is the funniest, most genius part of the whole framework.
You have two completely different languages colliding. You have Atlas language,
Mm.
all the stuff we've been talking about, cognitive scaffolding, translation engines, presence bridges.
And then you have council language. Like, if you walk into a Tuesday night city council meeting where the municipal leaders are stressed about paying the electric bill and fixing potholes.
You cannot pitch them a cognitive scaffolding presence bridge.
No. They will literally laugh you out of the room. They only speak the language of occupancy rates, diversified revenue streams, and workforce development.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what do? You apply the saxophone logic.
Jazz, improvisation, and civic negotiation.
Exactly. You actively listen to the rhythm of the room. You adjust your vocabulary to the tempo of the city council's financial anxieties, but you hold the steady melodic line of the community's deeper cognitive needs. You pitch them increased facility utilization rates and diversified municipal revenue.
While under the hood you are secretly deploying high-level cognitive science on a municipal scale, it is stealth philosophy.
And that makes you a bridge builder. That is the ultimate identity this framework points toward.
A bridge builder.
Right. A bridge builder is someone who practices noticing. They notice underutilized potential, whether that is an empty kitchen, a frustrated entrepreneur, or a flawed technology like modern AI. They identify the missing connections, and they build a bridge to increase capability.
Because potential is completely invisible until it's connected to a supportive environment. That baker's potential as a brand builder doesn't exist without the bridge of the digital studio.
It is an incredibly hopeful way to look at the world.
It really is. I mean, to pull all these threads together, we started by tearing open the sealed processor of the mind and looking at how Oliver the dog and architecture prove we think with our bodies and our environments.
We explored why building purely logical AI is a trap, learning from the tragic case of Elliot that logic without emotional vulnerability is just paralysis.
We unpacked how photography and jazz are strange tools that train us to navigate chaos. And we saw how a bridge builder translates all of this cognitive science to revitalize a small-town kitchen incubator.
If we distill the core thesis from all of this, it leaves us with a stark warning. The defining danger of our era is not that machines will suddenly become hyper-intelligent terminators.
No.
The true danger is that humans will become extant, that we will become distracted, disembodied, and placed entirely outside of our own lived experience by the very tools we build.
Wow.
The future must belong to technologies, architectures, and civic environments designed not to substitute human effort, but to extend it. We need tools that help us remember how to be fully bodily human.
A calculator solves, but a friend participates. I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your day. We've talked so much about how our minds truly extend into our environments and the tools we use. So take a look around the physical room you were sitting in right now. Look at the lighting, the objects, the atmosphere. What is this specific environment thinking alongside you? And what kind of human being is it quietly helping you become? Keep noticing.